Hello and welcome to the news for Wednesday, the 17th of September. And the news once again is dominated by eyes on Charlie Kirk, the fallout, the reaction, and people now starting to take sides, not dissimilar to the whole Israel-Palestine scenario where you are forced to take sides. Now, let's get into it today. After weeks of speculation about who Pauline Hanson would nominate for a replacement for Warwick Stacey, who quit the job just months into taking his 6-year term, she's turned and chosen Sean Bell, a long-time advisor within the party that no one's heard of, to take the role of the new Senator for New South Wales, disappointing many who thought that Tony Nikolic or Stuart Bonds may get a run, both being high-performing candidates for One Nation and offering their own valuable resources. But Pauline, the most powerful third-party politician in Australia, well, it's her judgment and hers alone. Next up, and this gets really interesting, after what we've seen with Pauline Hanson as the head of the third-party movement in Australia, technically, and appointing the unknown Sean Bell to the role vacated by Warwick Stacey, Craig Kelly, who was once going to be in the seat that Sean Bell now has, he's come out with a new idea, given the frictions within the Liberal Party, of which he was once a serving member of Parliament. He's come up with a 10-point plan, and I'll give you part of that now. He says Andrew Hastie to resign over the Liberal Party's weakness on fighting net zero. At least half a dozen other Liberals join him. Hastie then announces a new party and invites all the other Liberals to join. A few more jump to sinking Liberal Party ship. Then there's a convention like Menzies held in Albury in December of 1944 of the breakaway Liberals and the smaller like-minded parties, including the Nationals, One Nation, the Libertarians, Family First, Katters Australia, and even Rennick's People and United Australia. Policy platforms are determined and they vote to make Andrew Hastie the leader, Jacinta Price the deputy leader of the new united force to take on Labor at the next election. What do you think of this so far? Well, then he goes and says that they can go all the way to the 2028 election. Sitting MPs and senators that join are automatically pre-selected and nominations are called for candidates for all 150 lower house seats and the Senate positions in every state, with pre-selections to be held by Democratic primary. The left over Liberals' facade is in obscurity, with several joining the Teals. The new entity storms the nation and hits in the lead in the polls like the Reform in the UK, and then smashes Labor in the 2028 election. Net zero scraps, migration cut, freedom of speech guaranteed, pro-family tax reforms introduced, and COVID royal commissions commenced. How about that, Australia being saved? Well, I will have Craig Kelly in a special interview for the 51st state on the show tomorrow, and I hope you can enjoy and join me for that. Interesting, isn't it? The darkest hour is always before the dawn. Next up, we're going to go around in circles once again as the Prime Ministers of Australia, Canada and the UK, well, they're just telling us that we have an Islamophobia problem. Play that clip for you now.
We've seen a devastating rise in Islamophobia.
We must stamp out the hate, fear and prejudice that drives Islamophobia and division in our society.
Because of the hatred fueled by ignorance that is still a lived reality for far too many Muslim Canadians.
The surge in Islamophobia is simply appalling.
The targeting of Australians based on their religious beliefs is not only an attack on them, but it's an attack on our core values.
The values of community, of generosity, and yes, of sacrifice.
Leaving people feeling fearful and unsafe in their own country.
Australians should be able to feel safe and at home in any community.
Our Canada is a diverse country. We can pray differently. We can gather in different places of worship, but all of us come together, all of us must come together around the values of Eid.
I'd like to thank Muslim organisations and mosques who work tirelessly to raise awareness and shine a light on the scale of Islamophobia.
A substantial contribution to help tackle Islamophobia and focus on promoting acceptance and inclusion.
Ibrahim or Abraham, Ishmael or Isaac, the lessons and values of Eid are the same. These are Muslim values. These are Canadian values.
Meantime, this is a Sydney-based scholar, Dalia Ayub, telling us that the solution is Islam and Sharia law.
It is without a doubt the Quran is the only way forward. The Sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only system that we should abide to, that we should follow, that we should seek to establish on earth. That's the only thing that would work, because without, obviously, with what's happened in the past 2 years, seeing what happened in Gaza, you'll be a blind person to think that anything as such as international law. Zionism is above all laws. Those systems were built to serve our enemies. They were built to serve the egos and the white supremacy and the enemies of Islam, not us. People under Islamic rule have never suffered. So the way forward is to return back to the Quran and the Sunnah. That's the only manhaj, and to be from those who are working towards that, and not be deceived by their so-called democracy, their so-called systems. The United International Scholars Union, which is a big, weighty body, spoke about, they actually issued a fatwa that what is happening in Palestine requires jihad. Right? They did issue that, although was a bit of a late fatwa, I believe, because it came recently, very recently. Although some other scholars did issue this and say this, it's obvious, because especially in Palestine, there's a clear enemy, an occupier, and defending yourself and your ird and your people and your country and your muqaddasat and al-Aqsa is not something that you even the ulama, this is in our deen, you don't even need approval by any other, anyone else. This type of jihad you don't need, actually.
Meanwhile, the Daily Telegraph reports the Doomsday Climate Change report has cost taxpayers $23 million. This is the one where you've seen Chris Bowen's major national climate risk assessment, which has warned of devastating heatwave deaths if the temperature rises by a whopping 1.5 degrees. And coastal flooding in Australia involved 350 people and cost $23 million. It also didn't examine any potential deaths from cold weather. But if that weren't enough, Greens leader Larissa Waters, she's gone into meltdown officially because we're all going to die from the heat, and that is all we need to concentrate on. Never mind about tomorrow or putting a roof over your head. It's all about the climate.
I'm just so bloody angry. After 10 months and a bunch of pressure from the Greens, from the community, Labor has finally been forced to release their climate risk report. And it's pretty clear why they've been hiding it for so long, because it's full of absolutely terrifying news. The report predicts that Brisbane could be flooding for 300 days of the year, and that more than 1.5 million people are at risk of sea level rise, namely like their houses flooding and being inundated by 2050. Not to mention the catastrophic impacts on biodiversity and nature, on infrastructure, on every part of our way of life. I find it so galling that today the minister stood there and said that there's significant potential for loss of life, which is true, but last Friday they ticked off on Woodside's mega dirty gas plant for that to continue polluting all the way out to 2070. I'm afraid the actions just do not match the words. This week is absolutely critical. We know that the government's going to announce their 2035 climate target. And if we have a shit target, then everything in that climate risk report is going to come true. If we have a strong science-based target, then we have a chance of avoiding the worst of those impacts. So please help us keep the pressure on the government for a strong science-based target, not a target that just makes the coal and gas companies happy and richer. We are sick of them being in charge of our democracy. We need science and community safety and the future of our world to be what's driving decisions.
Meantime, the Albanese government has decided to put all of its energy eggs into the canola oil basket. That's right, that's how the Albanese government proposes to deal with the panic that we just saw from Larissa Waters there. They're going to invest in canola oil or biodiesel as a way of being able to gently fuel trucks and heavy machinery as the way forward. But no mention of what we're going to do with our cars in this new investment. Albanese, first it was solar, then it was wind, and now it's canola oil. $1.1 billion investment. Next up, we're learning in Victoria now that people who have had enough with crime are having to take precautions. It's not enough to lock your car in the garage. You've got to go further than that now. What you need to do is to install a bollard. Correct. That's right. You're going to have to put a bollard over, and we're now learning that the increase there, people trying to protect themselves, including Faraday wallets to hide their car keys and alarms in, and other methods there as well. But what crime are we seeing in Victoria? Next up now, we're going to go to coverage from the United States, where Tyler Robinson has been charged with murder and calls for the death penalty in this particular case. Kash Patel has since gone out and said that there could be as many as 20 people involved here. No stone left unturned. Meanwhile, there are more calls as usual that Israel is involved, and we've dealt with that yesterday on the interview with Elijah Schaffer. And at the same time, I had former FBI Greg Schaefer, who now also worked for Turning Point USA as Charlie Kirk's personal security guard from 2015 to 2022. You can catch that interview with it. You can look it up here on channel51.com.au. Let's now go to this first clip now where we hear from the charges and also the emails, which was very interesting, between Tyler and his flatmate or partner/lover.
A text message from Robinson which said, "Drop what you're doing. Look under my keyboard." The roommate looked under the keyboard and found a note that stated, quote, "I had the opportunity to take out Charlie Kirk, and I'm going to take it." Police found a photograph of this note. The following text exchange then took place. After reading the note, the roommate responded, "What? You're joking, right?" Robinson, "I am still okay, my love, but am stuck in Orem for a little while longer yet. Shouldn't be long until I can come home, but I gotta grab my rifle still. To be honest, I had hoped to keep this secret till I died of old age. I am sorry to involve you." Roommate, "You weren't the one who did it, right?" Robinson, I am. I'm sorry." Roommate, "I thought they caught the person." Robinson, "No, they grabbed some crazy old dude, then interrogated someone in similar clothing. I had planned to grab my rifle from my drop point shortly after, but most of that side of town got locked down. It's quiet, almost enough to get out, but there's one vehicle lingering." Roommate, "Why?" Robinson, "Why did I do it?" Roommate, "Yeah." Robinson, "I had enough of his hatred. Some hate can't be negotiated out. If I am able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. Going to attempt to retrieve it."
Meantime, this is how ABC News America dealt with the touching emails between the killer and the lover, because that's what it's about.
We have seen an alleged murder with such specific text messages about the alleged murder weapon, where it was hidden, how it was placed, what was on it, but also it was very touching in a way that I think many of us didn't expect. A very intimate portrait into this relationship between the suspect's roommate and the suspect himself, with him repeatedly calling his roommate, who is transitioning, calling him my love, and I want to protect you, my love. So it was this duality of someone who the attorney said not only jeopardized the life of Charlie Kirk and the crowd, but was doing it in front of children, which is one of the aggravating circumstances of this case. And on the other hand, he was, speaking so lovingly about his partner. So a very interesting and, as Pierre said, riveting press conference, David.
It was.
Next up now, we're going to hear from Andy Ngo, who is talking to Jesse Waters about the cult of leftism and the dangers that he has faced himself, being attacked and assaulted in the past.
What needs to be done is their propaganda and lies has to be exposed. I hope that it's been eye-opening for the public to see the bloodlust that exists, not just on the fringe left, obviously, but also on the mainstream left in the aftermath of this assassination. It is a cancer that exists on the left, and it's mainstream, and there's some data to back that up. Just overnight, a mural for Charlie Kirk in Pensacola, Florida, was vandalized with Antifa propaganda on it, and some of the messages that left on it were the exact messages from what was engraved on the rifle cartridges that were used in the attack. So this is the mindset we're dealing with. It is, I will call it a death culture. They worship death, they want their targets killed, and they've been supported by a huge apparatus. I'm not just talking about the Black Bloc militants who are on the streets as acting as thugs, carrying out arson attacks and assaulting people. I'm talking about politicians who spread their propaganda and lies, NGOs, nonprofit groups, elected officials, and many in the Democrat Party, and of course many journalists. We've seen many disgusting lies spread in the last few days in liberal media suggesting somehow that this accused gunman was a far-right Christian nationalist inspired by MAGA.
And here we have another disturbing story. George Zen, the man who was originally arrested and made out to be potentially the killer who had a bad record, he's now been charged with possession of kiddie porn. If you can believe that, it just goes from bad to worse, doesn't it? And apparently these are the good guys. Well, earlier today, Kash Patel was facing the scrutiny and the wrath of the Congress yet again, and he was attacked by the usual Democrat politicians. Here he is in an interchange with Adam Schiff, and they are going about it. It is as good as any heavyweight bout you will ever see.
You clearly won't tell us the cabinet members associated with Mr. Epstein. Let me ask you one last question. And that is, right after she gives this testimony in front of an FBI agent, among others, she's transferred to a minimum security prison not suitable for a sex offender like herself. Who made that decision and why?
The Bureau of Prisons.
The Bureau of Decisions made it in
Prisons.
The Bureau of Prisons decided on their own, without any consultation with Blanche or anyone else, that they were going to suddenly, after this interview, completely unrelated to this interview, completely unrelated to anything she said, move her to a prison not suitable for a sex offender. You want the American people to believe that? Do you think they're stupid?
No. I think the American people believe the truth, that I'm not in the weeds on the everyday movements of inmates. What I am doing is protecting this country, providing historic reform, and combating the weaponization of intelligence by the likes of you. And we have countlessly proven you to be a liar in Russiagate, in January 6th. You are the biggest fraud to ever sit in the United States Senate. You are a disgrace to this institution and an utter coward.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised that you continue to lie from your perch and put on a show so you can go raise money for your charade. You are a political buffoon at best.
Well, you can take an internet troll.
Take it to the bank that the FBI is protecting this country and the state and citizens of California. We are bringing historic reform. Point of order. But all you care about is a child sex predator that was prosecuted by a prior administration, and the Obama Justice Department and the Biden Justice Department did squat. And what did President Trump do? Bring new charges courageously. And what have we done?
Chairman,
you said I'm the most transparent FBI director in history. 33,000 pages of information to you. I challenge you to say anything credibly to the truth. Go ahead and run to the cameras where you want to go now.
Both of you be quiet. Before I go.
Let's now go to some coverage here from Charlie Kirk. This is some video clips. Here he's talking to a man that clearly looks like he's dressed in some sort of satanic garb, being questioned about the Bible. Take a look.
Jesus saved my life. I'm a sinner, gave my life to Christ, most important decision I ever made.
So you believe the Bible is real?
Yes, I believe the Bible is true and real.
Why is that?
Well, I could give you the technical answer. There's never been an archaeological discovery that has contradicted the truth of the Bible. And then, of course, the wisdom. There's not a truth of the Bible that if you apply to your life does not improve dramatically. And then finally, we have the most accurate and transparent, historically robust account that one can have of the most important figure ever to live in the history of the world, Jesus of Nazareth. And the resurrection is the pinpoint of my belief that Jesus did rise from the grave so that we may live.
What makes Christian mythology real?
So that's not mythology, but that is theology. If Genesis 1:1 and the resurrection is true, anything in the Bible is possible. You're looking at the greatest miracle. The greatest miracle is creation. And then the fact that Jesus rose from the dead. And I say, how do you know that Jesus rose from the dead? Well, show me another historical piece of a story where so many people willingly died a brutal death for a lie. Every single person around him had everything to lose, and yet they went to the absolute death, from Paul to Peter to the half-brother of James, saying that Jesus is Lord, Jesus rose from the dead. Not to mention, if you were going to fake a story, you would not use female witnesses in the ancient world. In the scriptures, it said that the women were the first one to see Jesus Christ. If you're trying to fake a story, you would never.
Meantime, the rhetoric, as we always get to hear about racism, racism, and racism. Well, here's a man of colour talking and defending Charlie and explaining it better than most other people have been able to do. Terms like racism and fascism, as he argues, are completely overused and have no meaning whatsoever. And furthermore, he even goes on to explain how Charlie is not racist, in fact, the entire opposite.
Is this the guy you're calling a racist?
One thing that white people and black people have different biologically.
Don't change the question of this, like DNA-wise, we are different.
No, we're not. That's a lie. It has been disproven. Front page of National Geographic 6 months ago. Racism created by society. Race is a social construct that I want to break out of.
Hold up. He doesn't even believe in race. The Oxford English Dictionary defines racism as prejudice based on race, or the belief that some races are inherently superior. But if Charlie's a racist, why is he arguing race doesn't exist? If he's a white supremacist, doesn't he need race to be real? I mean, you can't be a racial supremacist while arguing racial categories are fake. And wait a sec. Race has been used to justify oppressing black people for centuries. So why is the black kid defending racial categories while the white supremacist wants to destroy them? This isn't new for Charlie. He's been saying this for years. And guess what? He's right. Here's the history of race. People always noticed skin color, but it mattered about as much as hair color. Slavery existed everywhere and was practiced by every skin color long before race was invented. Then, European colonizers needed justification for enslaving Africans. So, in the 1600s and 1700s, they invented racial hierarchy. The most influential framework came from Johann Blumenbach, a German doctor. He created the racial categories we still use today. Then, Georges Cuvier took Blumenbach's categories and ranked them, with white on top and black on the bottom. And racists ran with it. But here's the twist. Blumenbach never intended to create racial hierarchy. He was just trying to organize observable human characteristics, kind of like classifying plants. He believed we all have identical intellectual potential. He said differences came from environment and education, not biology, and those differences could evaporate over time. He was a devout Christian who believed we were all made equal. Sound familiar? Charlie Kirk consistently argued against racial categories and got called a racist. Yes, Charlie talked about race sometimes. He knew it was made up, but we live in a racialized culture. To change a culture, you must speak its language, especially when that culture keeps race alive through affirmative action and DEI. But most people never heard him in a long-form interview.
Again, I hate this racialization stuff, but it's true. Too. They force the racialization card. For the record, of course, I don't look at people in terms of skin color, but when they start categorizing me and the young men that show up to my events as toxic because they breathe, you force the race card.
I used to think Charlie was just confrontational with college kids for clicks. Then I listened to his full interviews. I realized he was fighting for hearts and minds in the battleground of ideas, and he was winning. That's why he was killed. And the tragic irony, Charlie believed in race less than many of the people calling him racist. We think we know someone from 60-second clips. We mix news with entertainment and call ourselves informed. We judge strangers from echo chambers. And that's part of the tragedy. Not just that we lost Charlie, that people can't tell the difference between hate speech and speech they hate.
Here's a meme from Charlie himself. Get married, have children, build a legacy, pass down your values, pursue the eternal, seek true joy. Eventually, we will replace the nihilists. And back in Australia, footy fans are left shocked by AFL legend Gary Ablett Jr.'s Instagram post about Charlie Kirk. Some footy fans have voiced their shock. Others have praised the legend for his gushing post about Charlie Kirk in the wake of the assassination of the American activist. So it seems that people were disappointed that Gary Ablett Jr. would actually put his name to something saying how shocked he was that a man was murdered in the prime of his life. Bad Gary Ablett. Gary Ablett's Instagram story proves why you should never meet your heroes. Another one, really disappointed, but not surprised. Gary Ablett Jr. is one of the great people that all kids should aspire to be, a true gentleman. You might have a different opinion, but criticising people who have a different perspective than your own is why more are now leaning right and appears to be the left's undoing. Meantime, Mick Jagger has also come out. He said, Charlie Kirk news got me sick. Jesus is coming soon. That is some statement. And NFL football star Brett Favre has said, I'm at loss for words. Only one thing I can think of is tragic. Meanwhile, Javier Milei says the underlying values of leftism are envy, hate, resentment, unequal treatment under the law, and violence. Carmine Sabia, who I interviewed recently, said that Democrats and media suggested that Biden and Harris should not debate Trump because he was a threat to democracy. Carrie Lake's opponent did not debate her for the same reason. They've dehumanized us for a decade. Tyler Robinson is the result of that. It was predictable. And insanity is thinking it's wrong to lose your job because of what you said, but what you said was Charlie should lose his life for what he said. Mario Murillo. And the last word of the day, Charlie Kirk never used hate speech. He used speech they hated. And in other news, Alan Jones has faced 9 more charges and is now up to 44. He faces court today. And one wonders how many people will come forward with Alan Jones, some going down to call him Australia's Jimmy Savile and others calling it lawfare. Well, that is the news for today. Thank you all for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with that interview with Craig Kelly and many other pieces to look out for as well, past, present and future. Thanks for your time.